A mishmash of specs, not particularly high-end, but really very affordable. Now they're back to kind of high-end and attacking, well, the phablet market, which means a tablet combined with a phone sort of experience because it's so big. Now I have big hands, folks, so if you've got small hands, you might find this a little harder to hold than I do. I can manage this phone. I am about 6 feet tall and I have pretty long fingers though. The size is up to you. I'm not going to lecture you about size. You know whether a big phone is for you or it's not for you. Let me just say that if you're on the fence, if you haven't really used a big phone before, I suggest that you go into a carrier store and give it a try. There should at least be display models available soon at most carrier stores. Probably T-Mobile is going to be the fastest with that because they're the quickest to launch this device. And speaking of carriers, by the way, the Nexus 6 is available on Google Play in theory. They haven't really been able to keep it in stock since they put it up for pre-order. And it's also available through the big four major U.S. carriers. Of course, worldwide, your story is going to be different with carrier availability, but talking about the U.S. And the interesting thing is this is $649 for the 32 gig model, $699 for the 64 gig model. T-Mobile is actually charging that price, but some carriers are marking it up a bit, AT&T and Sprint, for example. We don't know yet what Verizon's going to charge. So there it is. But if that's your only route to availability, well, that might make it worthwhile to you. Notice how it looks like a Moto X 2014 edition. Funny that. And even the first generation Moto X, that's because it's made by Motorola. Google owned Motorola at the time that this phone was designed. Recently, they've sold Motorola off to Lenovo. That is the part of Motorola that makes phones, not the entire business. Anyway, really, really similar to the design language here. Now, you can't do the customizable backs and all that sort of thing that you can with the Moto X. That's a Moto X thing, but it's a beautiful looking phone on the Moto X, and it's still a really good looking phone here. So it's quite attractive, and it's quite unique too. You know, nothing else quite looks like the Moto design language. Got metal around the frame, and the color sort of matches. It's a purpley blue, more cool blue, I guess I would call it. And this is available in your choice of blue, which obviously this is here, or you can get it in what they call cloud white. It's a soft touch plastic finish. There is not an ounce of give here. There is absolutely no creak. It's a pretty sturdy phone. Because it is so big, it has already fallen out of my pocket once, happily, onto a carpeted floor, but survived just fine. Does it show fingerprints? Boy, it does show fingerprints, at least the blue one here. This is not fried chicken compatible. Do wipe your fingers before you handle your phone. And it's pretty hard to get the fingerprint oil off of it. You have to use a damp cloth to do it. Just a little wipe with your microfiber cloth, if you're the kind of anal type that carries one of those around, is not going to get the grease marks off the back of this. I'm sure by the time we're finished with this review, it's going to look kind of marred up. Ring LED flash here around the 13 megapixel camera. Sony sensor inside, which should be a good thing. Now, that's the same camera as we had on the 2014 Moto X, which was a meh camera. Now, Nexus devices typically haven't had the most awesome cameras, and Motorola seems at a camera disadvantage there. Don't know what the story is. But this is actually a pretty good camera as long as you have good lighting. I've actually been really pleased with the photos, but we'll go into that and look at the camera soon. Up top here, we have, despite the fact that this is a humongous phone, a little nano SIM card slot. It does come with an eject tool in the box, though there'll be a SIM card in here from the factory if you wish to use that one. Headphone jack right up there. On the side, we have our volume and power buttons. It slims a lot to the side. This is not really a thin phone because it gets fatter in the middle. They hide the thickness pretty well by doing that, but so slim controls, but very easy to operate. I actually kind of like them, but I don't find that I hit them by accident. On the bottom, micro USB port right there. And this supports quick charging. It is a Snapdragon 805 in here, and it comes with a Motorola Turbo Charger in the box. Yay! So that means you can get somewhere between 30 and 50% of a charge in half an hour, which is a good thing, isn't it? Obviously, no being stuck for hours trying to top up your phone. You can actually hop on the airport lounge there and get somewhere with the charger pretty quickly. Nothing going on this side right here. On the front, we have very glossy panel there. This thing is a mirror outdoors. The display is also not super duper bright. Stereo speakers though, my God, it's as loud as an Ultrabook. It is loud. It's pretty full sounding too. It's a great way to distract people. Display here, Obviously, it works in portrait mode on the home screen. Now, we picked on Apple and iOS 8 and the iPhone 6 Plus for not really tailoring the OS particularly to take advantage of phablet-sized screens, really big screens here. And the same thing really is true of Android 5.0 Lollipop, which this is running a Nexus device here. Will always have the latest, greatest OS. You'll get the updates quick. You'll make your friends jealous. But anyway, nothing really special going on here in the UI to say, wow, you got a really big screen. We're going to help you take advantage of it. It's just the standard stuff right there, including Google's preference for, whoops, if you say OK Google, obviously you launch the OK Google searching command. Oh, you did it again. Anyway, see how big those icons are there? That's one thing about the stock Google launcher. You can change that if you want, but I find them to be kind of humongous. And a swipe this way obviously gives you your Google Now information. Notice how I try not to say those two words together because it just might think I want a voice search. And now for size comparison, we're going to show you it's not as bad as it could be. This is the Nexus 7 2013 edition, a 7-inch tablet. Granted, that has a really big forehead and chin. The top and bottom bezels are big on this, but still. This 6-inch phone, 5.96 inches, actually, you can see they're awful lot smaller, way more than what an inch display size would indicate. So obviously a phone versus a tablet, there's a whole lot more, shall we say, size optimization going on with a phone. And here we have it with the dubiously successful LG G Flex, the curvy phone, the banana phone right here. 6-inch phone also, but our Nexus is smaller. So for those of you who have played with this and said, well, I can deal with this LG G Flex, you can certainly deal with this. And lastly, here it is with a competitor. I think a lot of you are going to be trying to decide between these two phones who have a lot of similarities in hardware, very different software philosophies. This is the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 with a 5.7-inch display. So it is a little bit smaller, not surprisingly, than the 6-inch display right here. But the size difference is not, well, humongous, to be a little bit punny there. There you have one on top of the other. It's not really that different. And just for giggles, here it is with the 4.7-inch iPhone 6, so you can see the big difference in size. And I have to say, with the back view here, nobody's going to have to ask you, hey, what phone is that? That has to be the biggest Nexus logo they've ever used yet right there. And you get the Motorola Batwing. There is that little depression right there. Makes a nice little spot to put your finger on the phone. But what's inside? Now that we've looked at the outside, Snapdragon 805 quad-core CPU, 2.7 gigahertz. That's the latest, greatest CPU you can get in a smartphone right now. It's the same one that is in the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, the Galaxy Note Edge as well. Adreno 420 graphics, 3 gigs of RAM, 32 or 64 gigs of storage. That's your choice. This is a Google product. They hate removable storage. There's no micro SD card slot. So get whatever amount of storage you need to start with, keeping that in mind. Of course, cloud services these days, you can stream movies, you can stream music. You might not need that much storage space. And this 32 gig model right here had 26 gigs free out of the box, which is pretty ample. So I had enough room to put some big fat 3D games on here and all my other favorite applications without getting anything like precariously low. The display, it's an AMOLED display, 2560 by 1440. That's a pixel density of 493. That is a very high pixel density since this is AMOLED. It has a pentile matrix, but I don't care if you're Superman, you're not going to be able to see the individual pixels here. It's very sharp, very clear. Because it's AMOLED, it's also very color saturated, so a lot of people do like that. You get plenty of zingy colors right here. Now this kind of stained background pattern might not indicate it, but if we take a look at some photographs, which we will later, you'll get the idea. Your photographs that you take with this camera, you're going to think, my God, I have never seen better colors. But that's because the screen is so very color saturated. In terms of bias, it's actually not so bad. Let's take a look at a Google Playbook. So there, the white background looks, well, pretty neutral and pretty white. Also really very nice and sharp. If you like to read, the big screen means more words on the page. You can use a smaller font size. I have it set down one notch below 100% actually right now. It's gorgeous to look at. It's a lovely device for reading. And overall, I think it's a quite nice screen. Brightness is not its strong suit. Now, it's viewable outdoors, except for the fact that it's such a glare monster, and you can use it to arrange your hair outdoors really easily. Let's put it that way. But it's not the brightest. It's under 300 nits of brightness. Yeah, you know, as long as I can see it outdoors, that's okay. But when it comes to this versus the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, the Note 4 is a lot brighter. For those of you who really like lots of brightness. But even here in Texas, in the sunlight, like I said, it is viewable. Since this is a Nexus device, it is running pure Android 5.0. It does not have any customizations whatsoever. So though it bears a lot of resemblance to the Moto X and is made by Motorola, you don't get some of those neat Moto Assist features. And you don't get double tap to wake up like you do on the Nexus 9 tablet. That was an HTC thing. But you do get something pretty neat. If you do something like pick this up, it's going to show you monochrome information right here. Just can barely see it. It's going to fade out right there. So you can actually just pick it up off the desk and see whatever notifications you need to see on the device without waking it up. So that's a pretty nice thing. Also, when a notification comes in, you'll get that same kind of grayscale faint view of the screen that's going to show you what that notification was. The dialer here is very simple. It also has a favorite screen if you want. Voice quality has been very good. We've been testing this on T-Mobile's LTE network and 3G, obviously, and 4G HSPA network, because you're going to drop down from LTE to those networks when you're making a call. Anyway, call quality is very good. One challenge is the phone is very big, so you're going to have to remember to actually line up the earpiece with your ear. It's pretty easy to kind of let it migrate upward, and then you realize, wow, I can't hear too well anymore. That would probably be why. Phone has 12 LTE bands. Now, if you get it from a carrier with a contract or a payment system, it probably will come locked. If you get it from Google Play, you're going to get it unlocked. Anyway, it should work on all U.S. carriers. Certainly the unlocked Google Play edition does. And if you buy it from your carrier and get it unlocked afterwards, it should also work. So with Android Lollipop, we get the new UI right here, the material design as they call it, and this is not a review of Android 5 itself, so we're not going to go too in-depth here. It's been very quick, it's been very responsive. Another thing that's supposed to be part of Lollipop is what Google calls Project Volta, like voltage, get it? So it's supposed to have really good battery life, be very efficient, all that sort of thing. The Snapdragon 805 also has optimizations compared to the Snapdragon 801 to use less power on LTE. Since LTE is a big power consumer. Well, so far not so much. This has a 3220 milliamp battery that is sealed inside. You can't open this up and take the battery out. That's the same capacity as the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, which is a solid all-day phone, even if you're using it, moderately. It's not super crazy heavy there. And we'd hope for a little bit more from the Note 4, but it really, if you use it lightly, you get 2 days out of the Note 4. This guy, not even as good as the Note 4. Now, probably, I'm guessing there's going to be some more firmware updates for this phone. We've already gotten one over the air that improve things further. I hope so. Now, that doesn't mean that it dies after half a day of use. It did make it through the day to about 8 o'clock before I had to put on the charger. That's what light to moderate use. If I was doing something like playing 3D games, I had to do that a lot to test. You get what I'm saying there. GPS navigation, the usual battery killers. Then you're probably going to have to charge at midday and say, thank God I have a turbo charger and it charges up so quickly. So battery life, given the size of the battery inside, meh, but it is almost a 6-inch display. It does have a fast CPU. Maybe we're just expecting too much here. So how about benchmarks? Now, with Quadrant, I would say something wasn't right here because it scored unexpectedly low, scored 13,727. That does not seem right to me, so take that with a grain of salt. On Tutu, it gave one of the highest scores we've seen yet for an Android phone, 49,961. It does really well on 3D benchmarks and actually does well for 3D games as well. It's 23,520, beat out the Note 4 there even. SunSpider JavaScript test 802. Typically, Nexus devices don't have wild optimizations for JavaScript performance like some, say, Samsung phones do. Some manufacturers really focus on that. Apple does, obviously. So that's an okay number. Geekbench 3, 1,062 for the single core and 3,215 for the multi-core. So all in all, one of the fastest phones when it comes to synthetic benchmarks, and as we pretty much expect, Google is not cheating either. So here we are now looking at the camera with our usual bath toy friend right here. Google's now sort of pulling an Apple and not giving you many settings here. So if it looks awful simple and plain to you, well, it is a pretty simple and plain viewfinder. If you want maximum 13 megapixel resolution, you're going to shoot in 4:3, which is why we have the big black bar right here with the camera button. Basic controls here, switching back and forth with the 2 megapixel front camera. To the rear one again. Control your flash. We have HDR plus on and off. Right now we're not in a setting where HDR particularly makes any sense, so I don't have it on. You got your grid view, you got your timer view. Okie dokie. So if you swipe in from here, you can choose the lens blur mode, which is trying to do the bokeh background defocus look that I still find to be a little bit crashy in Lollipop. Panorama, photosphere mode, and video mode. And if you want to get to even more settings, you tap the little gear over here. They're sort of making you work for it, aren't they, to find stuff. So you can choose your resolution, your save location. Advanced really does nothing more than manual exposure. So for resolution, you can see right here, the back camera right now is at maximum resolution. If you want to go to widescreen, you're going down to 9.7 megapixels. Obviously, it's up to you as to what you prefer. Switch to that right now. Front camera is what it is. And you can indeed shoot 4K video at 30 frames per second with the back camera. Front camera, 1080p is as good as it gets. I think that's okay with most people right here. Set your panorama resolution. There's your lens blur control. So normal shot time, pretty quick right there. Now if we turn on HDR+, it slows things down a bit. You can see it does that first, right there. And how about taking a look at some of the things that we've shot? Well, there's the bath toy. That's not too exciting to look at. Here's a 4K video. If you can barely hear me talking in the video, that's because recording level is quite low with the video camera. Now, if you're at a loud rock concert, that's something different. You'll probably be able to hear that just fine. But a normal conversational voice, not so much. Lovely looking. Nice, sharp shot. Good detail as we zoom in. It handled the golf ball pretty well there as something that's much whiter than anything else in the scene. It's very nice looking. A little cool bias for the color there, but not bad. And a warm lit scene here thanks to the winter lighting. This is with HDR on. That's with it off. Really not too much of a difference. It did help with the overexposure here in the corner more than anything else. And if we zoom in, you can actually see quite a bit of detail in the water there. So in good lighting, it does a really, really nice job, actually. We're shocked. And for a dark scene in an unlit office space here with a bunch of clutter and Android toys and stuff right there, actually did pretty well too. The noise on the keyboard, well, there really isn't much noise on the keyboard. And this was a pretty darn dark room. There's just a little bit of light coming in through a curtain, filtered light. So overall, good job with the camera. It's gaming test time, and we're doing Asphalt 8, which is a pretty demanding 3D racing game. And you can hear the speakers in this too. They're at about half volume. It should be pretty darn loud. Looks lovely. Now, I've been playing this for a bit, I confess, and it has been really very smooth. Really helps with the gameplay there when it behaves so well. Really impressed there. Usually I see some occasional frame skips. Not happening. Not happening. That's good. Whoa, wide turn there. Let's take him out. Good times. Ha! So that is nice. And let's hit a little nitro and speed up how things look. Yeah, it's playing great. So as a gaming device, besides the fact you've got 6 lovely inches here, it's also really smooth. And let me tell you, gaming on a 6-inch display is just really nice. Really, really nice. So that's Asphalt 8 on the Nexus 6. And nice, you can see some big screen video playback. We're playing our, obviously, Samsung Galaxy Note Edge review here.
This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is certainly one of the most interesting
Looks great.
smartphones of the year.
Sounds great.
The Samsung Galaxy Note Edge. Basically, it's the Note 4, but with a curved display.
So you get that nice color saturation, you get that just about infinite contrast right there. It's certainly plenty bright enough to enjoy a video. And the speakers on this are definitely above average. The HTC One M8 has somebody to look out for in this phone. So the phone has competition, surely. Phablets are all the rage right now. There is the iPhone 6 Plus. I suspect that Nexus people are not iPhone people. You're probably kind of hardcore Android if you're after the Nexus, since it gets you, well, that pure Android experience and updates before every other kid on the block. But there is that, and the Galaxy Note 4 and the Galaxy Note Edge would be two high-end competitors. There's a lot of other big screen phones on the market, like the Samsung Galaxy Mega, even the LG G Flex, but those tend to not have necessarily top-notch specs. They're big for the sake of being big, but they're also big but kind of affordable. So for really high-end phones, there aren't too many right now in Android land, and this would be one. How do you pick between them? Well, we'll have some Smackdowns to help you decide with that. But I can tell you for $649, really solid phone. Very quick, very smooth. I like it. So that's the Nexus 6, a device that we like a lot. Its biggest problem is availability. It's really hard to find one of these. Whether you go on Google Play or you go to your carrier store,